Hey, everybody. Thanks to our virtual Welcome Wednesday. Over the summer, as you know, I had some in-person Welcome Wednesday staying strong in the job search sessions. And I just thought, why don't we try to offer this to people not in Charlotte? So Christina um, Dorman from the ISSO and Molly McGoff from Counseling and Psychological Services decided that it's worth experimenting and said yes when I asked if they'd like to help with this. So we're going to give it a try to change our in-person session and deliver it to anybody in a virtual setting. So we'll just introduce ourselves and then get started. I'm Amy Mabery. I'm the Senior Assistant Director of the ISSO, and I have been in this job of international student advising for maybe 19 years and really enjoy it, and at Charlotte for 9 years.
I'm Christina Dorman. I'm the administrative assistant in the ISSO. I've been with the ISSO for about 2 years. August will be my 2 year anniversary.
And I'm Molly McGoff. I am a staff therapist with Counseling and Psychological Services. And I am new to this role. Have only been at UNC Charlotte as a staff member for a little over 2 months. But I graduated from the counseling program here with my master's and have been working as a therapist and also teacher, school counselor, as all things. Um,
Well, thanks for trying this with me. If anybody's ever been to a session that I've done, I often start with icebreakers. And my favorite icebreaker, if you've been around, here's my secret, because the answers are always different, is what's something in the past week that's made you smile? And I can go. Last week, my dad was in the hospital from Sunday to Thursday. Come to find out he needed a pacemaker in his heart. So when he finally got home, it was a big deal, and we decided to celebrate. And one of his favorite foods is chicken wings. Chicken wings take a long time to cook. So I did something that's surprising that I've not done before is I bought takeout chicken wings from a chicken wings restaurant. It was a great investment, worth every penny. So Saturday, my sister's family was there, my parents. We had lots of great food. I didn't have to cook it. It was a full house, happy chaos, and just this feeling of, oh, we're all here. Because it was my dad in the hospital, but if you've ever had a family member, and it's kind of everybody, but just this satisfying, like my dad's feeling back to normal. We're eating good food. It's full of chaos. We're all here. So that's my story.
I can go next. Kind of similar. My family was here this weekend up from Raleigh to see AC/DC in concert.
Love that.
Yeah, we had a great time. It was a lot of fun, and it was nice to just see my parents, kind of let loose for the night and get to see a band that they've listened to since they were kids. And then they passed down listening to that kind of music to me and my sister. So it was really nice for the four of us just to have a really good night listening to music and dancing.
Nice.
for me, first thing that came to mind, something very simple. I was just today, I went outside for lunch and I sat in the shade and it was actually like not too hot. It was beautiful. Um, and I was just looking around at my surroundings. We have this nice little courtyard right in front of our building at CAPS. And there was like flowers in bloom and just like my view, just from where I was sitting, eating my lunch was just so like peaceful and it was lovely. And I was just like feeling the fresh air and I just felt very content and peaceful. So
Mm,
it's really nice. Yeah.
that does sound beautiful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I wanted to give some of my background of my interest in this topic of staying strong in the job search, and then maybe you guys can talk about yours too. Um, it's been a long time since I've searched for a job, but I do meaningful work, and meaningful work is stressful. I love my job, but in any given week, I'm sure I'm feeling at any time, sometimes scared, angry, sad, overwhelmed, maybe hopeless, and occasionally the big heavy emotion, shame, like a fear of failing or I failed or I've messed something up, um, and just noticing that. A few years ago, I heard Brene Brown say perfectionism is really rooted in fear and often fear of shame. Like, wow, that's a heavy wake-up call, because I have some perfectionistic tendencies. And realizing also I can make a lot of my decisions based in fear, and that was often modeled to me. And so I'm very fascinated in, are there other ways to be effective and be efficient and make decisions? And because I have such a history of like stress is a good thing and like under pressure, making decisions based on fear, that I really love the data that does shows the research of actually testing, are other things effective? Like, what does the research show? So that's my fascination with this topic.
Yeah, I graduated college in 2023 and got a job with ISSO in 2024. So I kind of understand, the recent times of looking for jobs, how stressful that can be. Constantly checking your emails, having your phone on you, make sure you don't miss any calls from the employer, and just scrolling aimlessly on LinkedIn and Indeed, whatever I can find. And that stress does carry with you because you have that expectation of, okay, I graduated college, now it's time to work. That's what they tell you that's going to happen after college. And so going through that recently, I feel like I can really relate to students that are also looking for jobs directly out of college. I also have a very teeny tiny background in psychology. It was my minor in college, and I thoroughly enjoyed all of the classes that I took.
Thanks.
Yeah, obviously this topic is both personal and professional for me. Personally, I was just very recently on the job market. I have a lot of experience applying to a lot of different jobs. I really like to change things up as far as my career goes. I don't like feeling stuck, so I'm not afraid to just kind of switch it up and apply to new things. But that doesn't mean it's not, stressful. And I noticed, just this latest time applying that skills that I've learned and practiced myself, both personally and professionally, for learning how to deal with anxiety and stress really helped me in this most recent job search. So, just goes to show that these are things you can practice, right, and get better over time with. Um, so that's kind of how I relate to this.
So we're going to look at two articles, research focused about what they say of thriving and living successfully in the face of stress. The first one is McCready and Atkinson's 2012 article, Resilience Training Program Reduces Physiological and Psychological Stress in Police Officers. So what that study did is it took a large group of police officers in California. Everybody took the same pre-test and post-test. But one group, half of them, spent 16 weeks practicing a proprietary training called Heart Math. Heart Math um, has several different practices about focusing and amplifying positive emotion. And what they wanted to see is, police officers to serve and protect, that's a pretty stressful job. And not just what we might think of as just mental stress, but your body's going through a lot too. Imagine a high-speed chase and how your heart would be racing, and maybe you would feel that heartbeat in your ears, and your breathing would be elevated. I mean, all of these are physical changes that your nervous system is activated. Okay? So it's a really intense mental, physical experience. Okay? And then a police officer, when they're off duty, imagine coming home and something happens. Maybe a child spills their milk, or somebody ate that special food that you had in the refrigerator that you fully expected to be yours. With all of that activation in their body, what's likely to happen? Would they snap and yell and get big and loud at, whoever spilt the milk? Or are there actual things that somebody in a high stress position can do actively to keep their body and their nervous system flexible so that even in that split second, a child spills the milk, that somebody even with a really intense job can react in a way that's appropriate to the situation and appropriate to the relationship. Okay. And so I think what they were asking is, are you a victim of your high stress job? And the only way to uh, live a better life is go have a no stress job, like be a monk in the mountains somewhere? Or are there active things you can do to improve the flexibility of your nervous system response and your outlook in life? What they found for this group is, for the group that went through the 16-week training and they're putting these practices into daily life, all of their mood scores improved. Stress, depression, um, reactivity. I'm going to open it up so I can look. All of their mood scores improved over the group that didn't have that 16 weeks of training and practice. So I found it very fascinating. Yeah. How about you guys?
I also found it very fascinating. Using those techniques in real life, it doesn't have to be extreme as, a high-speed chase, but say you are sitting at your apartment and you still haven't heard back from a job that you applied for that you're really excited for, and your anxiety spikes, you're really stressed, you have all the what ifs running through your brain, but you have class to go to afterwards, or you have a meeting with the ISSO. And so taking those practices, learning how to like calm down, control your heartbeat, take a pause to be able to go to the next situation without carrying over those stressors. Um, I use that day to day, going from one meeting to the next, even if it's not a super stressful situation. Sometimes you just have to take a breath, calm down, get your mind right, so you don't carry those things from one thing to another.
Yeah, I really appreciated this article. I mean, I know obviously a decent amount about, nervous system activation and stress and heart rate variability and things like that. But I really like how they showed, um, you know, sort of very discrete, applicable like practices, right? That can actually have a meaningful impact. I think a lot of times people think that like, oh, stress reduction, meditation, and I just have to go sit in a dark room, or like the monk on a mountaintop. And, really it's that's really not what it's about at all, right? It's about being able to handle the stressors that are coming at you, not avoiding them, right? So the idea of being able to, in the moment, right, adapt and be flexible, and just be aware of your own nervous system and sort of where you're at, and then being able to adjust. So I thought it was a really interesting article.
So you mentioned that the article talked about heart rate variability. So let me unpack that. Most smartwatches, a lot of people have smartwatches. Most smartwatches will measure that heart rate variability. So it's a pretty accessible thing to measure these days. For the most part, as your heart rate variability increases, it's a sign that your nervous system uh, flexibility is increasing. Or sometimes I've seen on Apple watches, they'll refer to it as like your battery, that as so I did it one day and I was at 17, which is a pretty high stress number. And so I just tried this. I think my sister's dog came and sat on my lap while I was practicing one of these practices. It was a heart lock-in. I've been through the heart math training, and maybe I'm modifying this particular activity, but I would just take my appreciation memory, like all of my family's together, we're eating good food, and just that satisfying feeling of, oh, we're all here. And just for as long as I can, for about 5 minutes, just really try to hold on to that feeling and relive it. Okay, so I was petting my sister's dog, reliving that positive emotion. After 5 minutes, my score went from 17, which is pitiful, but doubled in a 5 minute period. So how Apple Watch read it was that my like battery, I think it was like my battery capacity doubled.
Mm,
So
very
it's
cool.
pretty accessible these days
Yeah.
to look at your heart rate variability with many people have those devices. I borrowed my sister's. I don't really want my watch to tell me I need to move more. But I do find it fascinating to look at. And you can just experiment with take your heart rate variability before, then try a mindfulness practice where, say, for 5 minutes, you're trying to amplify a positive emotion or pay attention, like breathe, what am I feeling? And then intentionally shift gears to move into your next thing and just see, does my heart rate variability improve? Yeah. But what I found so fascinating is we the data is clear that this is a high stress job that they were studying. And the control group improved in coping skills, family relationships, work performance, and interpersonal skills over the group that didn't implement these practices in just a short amount of time. Like 16 weeks is at most, what, 4 months? So a clear difference between the two groups and their outcomes. Okay. So there was a second article that we looked at.
Yeah, I can kind of briefly go over that one as well. So this one is by Dr. Judd Brewer. He kind of goes over the similarities of anxiety and addiction. A lot of people probably wouldn't, put that together, but the way he explains it, it makes a lot of sense. So he explains it by a trigger behavior and a reward. So obviously the trigger is what makes you anxious or uncomfortable. And then the behavior is what you do to make yourself feel better. So constantly worrying, constantly checking those emails, maybe talking to friends, stuff like that. Whatever gets you through that anxiety. And then the reward is obviously the relief you feel from the behavior you chose. And so worry is obviously the typical response to anxiety. And so he kind of explains how you can break that loop, clear your mind, get curious about what is making you anxious. Why are you feeling this way? What is making you feel this way? And what are better ways that you can relieve that anxiety and break that loop? So kind of going back to the heart map, um, what can you do to calm yourself down, to break that loop? Getting curious, is it the uncertainty of the job that you don't have? Is it you don't know what's next? Like, what is making you nervous, and what can you do to stop that?
So as I was reading this article, I've been looking at this article for a few months now, and in the process of sort of thinking about it, I've had some experiences where I got to put this in practice. So this may have been about 2 months ago. Um, I was walking to the front desk to cover the front desk, and if you've been in our office, we have a candy bowl and the front desk that Christina keeps stocked. And at that time, there was chocolate in it. And as I was going to the front desk, I grabbed a piece of chocolate to sit down. And I'm like, oh, Judd Brewer says an addiction is there is a trigger, a behavior, and a reward. And that the strategy to address this kind of unhealthy behavior is to get curious. And so, what if I want to get curious? Why did I just grab that chocolate? I'm like, oh, I'm sitting down to reach out to instructors to ask permission for exchange students to register for classes. Classes have filled fast, and I'm afraid these students who are coming in from other countries for August aren't going to get the classes they want. And they're going to be disappointed and sad, and maybe I failed them. Like, and because that's such an overwhelming feeling that I reach for the Hershey's Kiss to feel better. And it was just a powerful moment of getting curious as I was like, I know that eating sweets all the time is just not that helpful. It's not as productive as I think, like in the moment. But just slowing down and getting curious, at that moment, I was able to just plow through and continue contacting professors and not eat the chocolate. I mean, sometimes I do, right? But in that moment, it was super fascinating to just get curious. And I wasn't trying to willpower myself to stop, willpower myself to, you know, just do this hard thing. The only strategy I had was getting curious. So, yeah.
Yeah. I loved this article for a lot of reasons. I think he described like the brain mechanisms really clearly in a way that were very accessible, and I think everyone can understand. Um, And what I loved is the idea of being like an observer of your own thoughts and feelings, right? Like in the work that I do, right, as a therapist, I'm often trying to encourage people to just notice, right? Like you don't have to label it good or bad, but just notice that thought that you had, notice that emotion that you had, right? Where is it in your body, right? Does your chest feel tight when you have that thought? Does your stomach hurt, right? Do you notice your shoulders are tense, right? What would happen if you were to relax your jaw, right? So kind of that idea of getting curious, but really just noticing and recognizing that, you can actually separate yourself from your thoughts and feelings and kind of observe them almost as like an objective observer, right? There's some really cool parts of our brain that are responsible for that. I mean, it really is a game changer, with just kind of being able to be curious and notice, and not let those things control what you're doing in an unconscious way.
Mhm. Yeah, being able to get curious and understanding your why, it lets you kind of reposition your brain. So instead of constantly saying, what if, you now know what is making you anxious and can start saying, even if. So even if I don't get that email today, I might get it tomorrow. I can still go about my day. Everything will be fine. So you're able to reframe the way you're thinking so that anxiety doesn't continue to bubble up inside of you. And you'll be able to go about your day a little more calmer and be able to get the things done that you need to get done.
I have one more example of just how anxiety like can be like my brain can think it's a reward. Okay. So I was really excited about trying to deliver this virtually, but it was also unusual. Like we're just talking about stuff. This isn't a normal like classroom presentation. And I knew I needed other people, but I thought this is kind of an unusual request. Will people say yes or no? So I did get brave and ask Christina to help. And then my supervisor suggested that we really needed a counselor from the counseling center. So I was like scared. I didn't realize I was scared to reach out, but as I realized I should do that, like several hours into thinking I should do that, I found myself worried and anxious. I'm like, okay, let's do the work. Let me get curious. What am I anxious about? And I think I was anxious that nobody would be interested. It would just be too unusual of a request. And then I would get this email back that says, sorry, nobody's interested or available. And that no would be uncomfortable. But then I just got curious and paid attention. What has it felt like for the past 3 hours to think about submitting the request and just procrastinating? Like, oh yeah, it's been yucky. I don't really recommend that feeling of procrastination. And so just thinking about, yeah, what does that feel like? Well, I'm sure somebody saying thank you, but no thank you, we don't have anyone available is not going to feel worse than this. And so now, without really trying to willpower myself, it was just a very easy thing to submit that request because I was just paying attention that the reward I was getting, reward in quotes, of procrastinating wasn't really a great reward. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that example, Amy. And I'll just kind of quickly comment, like it made me think about two things. One, what's interesting is that um, our bodies, our nervous system has this physiological response, to what we anticipate, not to what's actually happening, right? So it's like you're sitting there worrying about, getting that email saying no one's interested, and your body is reacting in real time to that story that you just made up.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're right. Everything you're feeling in that body is what your body is imagining, right? It will feel like in the moment, and it's just creating those feelings in anticipation. So that's something to really get curious about and to notice, in ourselves of like, wow, like my body is literally reacting to this imaginary story that I just made up, right? That may or may not happen. And then the second thing is, I love how you thought about um, how would I actually feel? And it's probably not going to be worse than how I'm feeling right now, just stewing, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of took away that reward of worrying. And you know what? That's really true. Like the science shows that we're really bad at predicting how we're going to feel about a situation. Like we really think like, oh, I wouldn't handle that well, or yeah, I would handle that great. And most of the time, a lot of the time, we are not right. So it's a little bit of like a waste of time. We kind of just have to like check ourselves when we find ourselves predicting how we're going to feel about something. Because really the research shows like we're not very good at those predictions.
Mm. Oh, I love that to hear the background story of that. Anything else you guys found interesting on the articles? Okay. Well, how about what are you going to take away? And I can start first from these two things. I think what I'm going to take away is the value of these practices that nobody else can see. Maybe I'm walking to a meeting, or even say walking from my front desk to get a student in the lobby. And maybe I know this student has big needs, and just that invisible practice that nobody sees of me, like imagining for them that same positive emotion, like, yeah, like I had with my family. We're all here. We're in this together. And every minute that I do that is another minute of skill building, and the skills add up, and nobody ever sees it. But the results of how that improves quality of life is clear, and these articles have measured it. No.
Yeah. I think my biggest takeaway is that these emotions are intimidating. They're scary, and in that moment, you sometimes don't know what to do, but we're all human, and being mindful of the way I'm feeling and being able to break that loop and get curious so I can put my best foot forward and make sure that I'm the best person I can be for students and for staff and for faculty, and how that improves my work and improves my overall well-being.
I think for me, it's really just I'm taking away a reminder to really like practice what I preach, right? That there's so much value in just like even very brief check-ins, right? Like, and just taking the time to be that observer, have that curiosity and checking in and not just being on autopilot, right? I mean, even just this morning, right? I noticed like when I got into the office, I was like, felt like my heart was beating faster. I felt like my stomach was kind of upset. I was like, and I had the urge to just go ahead and get onto my computer, check my emails, get my day started. But I actually said, you know what, let me just take a second. And I went and I got away from my desk. I like sat in a more comfortable chair. I like had a little quiet moment. And I was able to sort of check in and realize that, yeah, like I'm going on vacation next week, right? So I have all of these things that I'm feeling, trying to get prepared. And I didn't realize like how I had sort of had this unconscious script that was running in the background, right? Like too many tabs open, too many processes open in my computer. I was slowing everything down, messing everything up. I was glitching. And I was amazed at how much better I felt. I'm not kidding. Like two minutes was all it took, right? But it was kind of like what you were talking about, Amy. I'm sure my heart rate variability probably doubled, right? So I just really will take away that reminder that these are accessible things, right? That we can all do, and they don't take that much time, but they really help.
Love those. So, Molly, for you, since you work in counseling and psychological services, for enrolled students, how would they know if they need more support than just these self-practices?
Yeah, I would say, Um, it's different for everybody. But if you feel like you might want to just bounce ideas off of somebody, right? Like if you feel like, what would it be like for me to just like go talk to somebody and kind of see, right? Because, if you walk into CAPS, very friendly, welcoming, accessible, we're not going to instantly enroll you for like a year of long-term therapy. That's not what we do. So what the first thing we'll do is have a very brief like 15-minute appointment, right? Just to kind of see like, okay, what are you coming in with? Is counseling appropriate, right? Individual counseling, maybe a group would be better, right? Maybe a workshop. Maybe we could connect you with another campus partner who offers more specific resources for, academic concerns or something like that. So I would just really encourage students to utilize us, even if they just have questions, right, about what it would even look like. Certainly, if you're noticing that you're just kind of preoccupied with things, you keep kind of looping, right? You find yourself thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same feelings. It's affecting, your appetite, it's affecting your sleep. You're finding it harder to concentrate, in class, or even before it gets to that point, right? Like I would say, really anybody can make an appointment. And like I said, your very first appointment is super brief. And we just kind of partner with you to figure out what's going to give you the support that you are interested in and that we agree, would be most helpful.
Love that that's available to all enrolled students. What a great
Yes,
service.
available to all enrolled students.
And how about confidentiality? Do students have to worry
Yes.
about that this will be part of their permanent record or?
I love that you brought that up. Yes, it is 100% completely confidential, right? So we're not sharing any information with professors, with parents, friends. Legally, we cannot tell them anything. Even if an issue were to come up that did impact your classwork and your academics, we could work with you. There are systems in place, right, to let your professors know that like, hey, this student is going to need an excuse for X, Y, and Z, but there would be absolutely no information shared about why, right? And they wouldn't even know that was coming from CAPS. So yeah, that's a great question. It's completely confidential.
Well, I love that. Well, thank you both for being brave and letting us experiment trying to offer this virtually. And for all of you students who are listening, I hope you benefited from hearing that we're human too, and maybe some of these strategies will be beneficial. Right. Bye, guys.
Hi, thanks.